Hello, welcome. I'm Santiago,
I'm Berta Clea.
and today we wanted to inform you more about the pros and cons of gaming. Gaming recently has been such a big thing, and it's been rising currently in popularity, both whether it be through a professional standard or even just more of a personal standard. And there are lots of pros and cons that people are not really aware about, and we wanted to inform you guys on them just to know where to be careful, what you should do, and what it can really help us with in this world.
Cool. So as we get started, we're going to cover some info about gaming and how gaming is changed today. So gaming today, gaming companies increased by $500 million amid the pandemic. Obviously, during the pandemic, a lot of people took that time advantage to just get into their hobbies, and gaming was one of those that children and the youth and young adults have done really well. Gamers say that they play for entertainment, break for stress, connect socially, escape reality, and reward. So they see all these really good attributes that are affecting gaming. But on the other hand, a lot of people are starting to say that gaming is a waste of time, distraction, unhealthy, a bad habit, and makes desocialization. So obviously, these are some pros and cons that are happening right now. We're gonna go a little more in depth on how it has changed and how can we kind of find that balance. We see a lot of benefits that come from gaming from the past, but also we see how people have still had this negative view on gaming. So we want to really educate you guys on what is gaming right now, what does it kind of look like, and what are the ways that are we can have that healthy boundary, good and bad.
So, one of the first pros that we covered was there's support in the medical field. And we've seen this through a statistic that shows that 30% of people who are suffering through cancer have had a 30% pain reduction. And this has been used not only for children, but adults too. And in a way, it says that it helps them because they focus more on the game, and especially with engaging games and ones that really suck you into the world or more intensive, they use a form of distraction, and they inform drag you in, so everything else around you seems to reduce. This has helped a lot of people who are going through chemotherapy. It also has helped people just overall have a pleasant experience who are staying overnight at hospitals, and it's overall a great use in the hospitals.
Okay, give us just 1 second. We're having some audio problems. Can you guys hear me okay? Give me 1 second.
Hmm. Yeah, we can hear you fine. But you're muted right now.
Great. So as we continue, we're going to cover some of the cons after the medical field. So now we're going to cover gaming rising health concerns. This is one of the main concerns that come in the discussion of the cons that come from gaming. So gaming is rising health concerns psychologically, physically, and may cause dissociation. So psychologically, we are seeing that a lot of people who play games or at least get addicted to them can really give a strain to their mental health. They can get anxiety symptoms, they have insomnia, and there's this desensitization when it comes to certain graphics and certain topics that are in games. Physical, there's repetition pain, weight gain, scoliosis, something called gamer's thumb, which is from the playing of remotes for a long period of time, sleep deprivation, and eyesight. Desocialization. Obviously, there's people seeing that gaming for a long period of time or in an addictive nature is lowering social skills. It has that addictive nature to it. Social dysfunction and face-to-face skills are starting to decrease. So these are some of the health concerns that people are facing or seeing in people that game for long periods of time or that are becoming slowly more addictive to a certain game or a certain software.
So another pro would be that there are social benefits, and one of these would be the social interactions. So some of those would be that people benefit with social anxiety as they currently struggle with it, and this is due to the fact that they don't have to meet anyone in person. And when they can have an online persona, it really helps them get out there and express who they are. And this along helps with anxiety, depression, and insecurity. This is due to the fact that they can finally interact with people and feel in a safe place. This also helps them find friends due to the fact that they can find similarities and niches that would be harder to find in person, and they have safe spaces along with therapy online. There's actually, it's interesting. There's online therapists who are certified who will help you out and help you go through anything that you might be struggling with. On top of that, in the safe spaces, communities like to be open and they help you be comfortable, and they'll usually um, reprimand those who are rude to one another. So it helps create this safe space for people when they feel like they might not have anywhere else to go.
Great. So now that we've reached kind of our half point, we always want to leave the chat open for you guys to ask any questions, anything that you have questions in gaming in general, or any of the pros and cons. So as I go through this, you guys can open up the chat that's down below and put in some questions, anything that you find interesting, or anything you just want to know more about when it comes to our expertise in gaming. So as I go through this presentation, you guys can go ahead and put those in the chat. So another con in gaming is affecting their communication. And we kind of already talked about this, the way that it's affecting their social skills. And these are skills that are really important, especially during this time of life. This is where a lot of them are learning crucial skills on how to speak, how to have face to face interactions, how to not be really intimidated when they do have those face to face reactions. So, the average gamer, which is between 12 and 22, have reported to play up to 20 to 25 hours a week. That's half of a normal work schedule. And this is the primary developmental stage where they learn. So, this is such a crucial time where their brains are still developing, where they're learning how to do certain things, where they're learning their habits. And this is kind of why people are seeing gaming as a negative thing, because it's happening specifically during this time where they need crucial communication skills, navigating face-to-face interaction, and there's community building. There's obviously a need for us to have interaction with one another, and people are starting to see that there's not that physical interaction if there's an addiction in gaming. Um, and going on in that, gaming can have an addictive nature, and by um, staring at a screen, these skills can be difficult to develop in face-to-face experiences. So there's now things that they're starting to see that a screen can't give them the same communication or the same interaction as they would if it was in person. Obviously, it's a great tool to be able to speak through a screen. This is how we're doing this presentation. But people are seeing when it's done for a long period of time, especially during this crucial development stage, we're starting to see the negative in that. So they face social dysfunction, social anxiety, and a lack of nonverbal communication. Obviously, nonverbal communication is something that's very, very important when we're speaking, using your hands, using your facial gestures, and we're starting to see that the younger generation and the generation coming up is really struggling with that. And gaming could be one of the things that's causing that.
All right. So while there is a lot of cons and a lot of negatives to it, there are also mental health benefits that we have seen observed. And that's good because currently there are 57,800,000 adults in the United States suffering from mental illness. So some of the benefits would be that there is currently group therapy. This allows for licensed help, licensed professional help through online. And for those that might struggle to go and talk to people personally about their issues, they can have a chance to do it in a form of anonymity. Anonymity. They can be anonymous in the way that they say things and the things that they do, and they get to do it in a place that they're comfortable with. And this usually is in form of an online game, whether it's an MMO where there's a lot of people or something smaller. Even I've seen groups for like Minecraft where people can just go in, have a little therapy session, and then just end up playing a little bit after to bond. So this is something that people can find comfort in because it's something familiar to them, something they've used growing up, and it allows for further communication and growth not only with therapists but also with anyone who might be in a group. There's groups, the group therapy, where people who are struggling through the same thing can go through this together and overall just grow and talk about it, but also they can make friendships. And this is allowed by them following up after having a Discord server or other online discussion board where they can continue to talk with each other and grow. And overall, it's a growing community, and there's always new members, and it's awesome to see them be able to grow like this.
So after going from the mental health, benefits in gaming, we also want to talk about kind of the drawbacks that come in the mental health and how it's affecting. So obviously, we're trying to kind of educate you guys on both sides of the story, and this is why there's such an important imbalance. So some of the mental health drawbacks, there's feelings of isolation and depression. We see a lot of people who really partake in gaming and have it as a consistent hobby facing things like this, playing hours and hours alone and then hopping off the screen and again being alone. And we see this feeling of isolation and depression, and that leads to that. So people have noticed isolation occur when gaming becomes an addiction. Although it may be used as an escape for reality, it may um, cause some to become isolated with reality. Obviously, gaming can be used as a kind of escape or kind of a hobby or something to just kind of put yourself, out of your normal routine. But this is also something that can be detrimental to those interactions that we have. So obviously, being able to balance that is where it's crucial. Um, we know that being isolated is something that can really, really affect mental health. And if there's a hobby that's constantly affecting that, then we want to see how can we balance that out. Another one of the mental health drawbacks when it comes to gaming, especially when it's for long hours, we see feelings of aggression and sleep deprivation. There are a lot of people on YouTube that share their experiences of being frustrated with the game, being angry with the game, and while it's all good and fun and we always have that balance in it's normal, we all have those emotions, there is now a more um, people are kind of desensitized in the way that interacting with a game now it's seen as okay if there's aggression because you're not really going to be held accountable to it behind a screen. And obviously sleep deprivation, gaming for long hours, it becomes addictive, and we find a lot of gamers sleeping at 2 3 a.m. in the morning when it does become really addictive. So people have noticed frustration and anger issues that stem from an addiction of gaming. Addiction to gaming can affect one's sleep pattern, as a majority of gamers play at night. It's something normal that people play at night. That's the time that we have for ourselves, but there is a balance that needs to be set in that.
So while there are these drawbacks, there's also some cognitive benefits in education. Now, we want to show you both sides just because some might not know the benefits and might not know the drawbacks. And some of the benefits, though, that you can see when you research it and when there have been studies is that there is an increased performance in overall just cognitive tests and other performance-based things based on those who game compared to those who don't game. Now, there's also been studied that there's higher IQs in those who game, especially the younger people. As we talked about earlier, at that point is when people start learning more, start growing, and as they practice these skills through games, whether it's puzzle solving, critical thinking, social interaction, they learn these skills pretty early on and can develop them as they go throughout their life. And another thing we've been able to see too is just better overall mental ability. This can go from eye to eye coordination and even critical thinking, as games usually incorporate a lot of reaction based um, gameplay and overall just critical thinking gameplay. And there's all different types of games, from creativity and other sorts. It helps really just improve their mental ability. And we do have a question. It says, at what age do you recommend kids to start their gaming journey in a healthy way? And so I guess for me, I would recommend kids to start their journey not too early, to the point where they don't know the consequences, the good and the bad, between spending too much time. I think overall it does depend per person, but I think a good age would probably be maybe later in elementary or mid-elementary, especially if gaming is introduced through educational benefits, which we will talk about in a bit, as gaming currently is being used for education. If it can be used like that, and it can be used and monitored by the parents to make sure that just overall they're not spending too much time and that they can balance it out, I think starting early would be great, and it would allow for these cognitive benefits and overall education that we've been talking about.
And there's also kind of a part in that when, knowing when to, have your child start playing games. What if they want to have that hobby? There's obviously, and parents need to be aware of this, there's obviously ratings for games. Knowing what kind of games are your child or your children playing at a certain age. Obviously, you won't be giving a teen or giving a young elementary student a mature rated game. You kind of want to be able to educate yourself, especially parents should be educated on gaming, especially if it's a habit that your child is going to start partaking in. So let's go ahead and go to the next slide, a little bit of the pro. Did you
Yeah,
want to expand a little bit more on this?
yeah, and thank you for your question, by the way. And so for this, we want to talk about the education opportunities that are available too. So as you can see on the right here, Minecraft is normally known for just being an overall video game, be creative, play with friends. But they've created something called an education edition. And this is used in schools to teach kids from coding to math to leadership. There's a lot that they like to teach children here. And I've seen it used at some schools, and a lot of schools have reported using this, and there has been reported to be an increase in learning and engagement as it's especially since it's a game that most people know, it makes learning more fun, it makes learning more engaging, and it overall captures the attention of the students. So there's Minecraft isn't the only one that's done this. There's a lot of other video games that have gone through doing this, whether it's something small like coding. But I like to talk about the Minecraft example here because it's one of the biggest games in the world. And the fact that they saw an opportunity to use it for education shows that there's a lot of potential that has not been touched yet in the world of gaming for just overall benefit for our world. And education, it being used so early in life, I think is a wonderful way to go, and it really has seen a drastic increase in overall performance and engagement from the students.
So now going into one of the cons, gaming is affecting the younger generation. Obviously, we know that a lot of people who are partaking in the hobby of gaming are young children to young adults. So this is our younger generation that's going to be coming in and learning, taking the skills that they've learned into the future. So 65% of parents say that games affect their children. And a lot of that times it's in a negative way. A lot of parents and the people in the older generation view it already in a negative light, but now that they're starting to physically see all of these negative or these negative things that are coming from gaming, now it's becoming more of a topic. There's an increase of exposure of violence, suggestive content, and strong language to pre-development adolescent that is affecting their behaviors in a negative way. Obviously, we've talked a little bit about desensitization and the things that they're really exposed to and those ratings. So we're starting to see that even certain games that are rated a specific way still have that kind of exposure to violence, the suggestive content that maybe not be fit for a kid, and really, really strong language. And we start seeing how these things that are being implemented into the game is no longer just behind a screen and being consumed by them, but it's outwardly being brought into them and put out into their actual relationships. We've seen a lot of people in the younger generation come out with very, very foul language that maybe we're not really used to seeing them know these certain terms or know these certain topics at such a young age. So we start seeing how gaming and this early, early exposure to certain topics is starting to affect their reality. So, in conclusion, we obviously wanted to educate you guys a little bit about what is gaming, obviously, first, but also how can we kind of understand the pros and the cons to it. Obviously, there's ultimately a balance that we need to have in that. Me and Santiago both have very good experiences with gaming and have been able to get out the good of it. But obviously, it's a learning process, knowing exactly how you can set your boundaries with gaming and knowing when it's time to put down the remote. So obviously, we both love gaming. We love getting to partake in those amazing games, and honestly, they're really, really fun. But there's also knowing when it becomes an addiction and when it becomes a attribute that's not really going to be beneficial towards yourself. Um, Balancing gaming, so obviously it provides critical thinking. There's lots of games out there that are puzzle games, that are strategic games, that are teaching us really good skills that maybe we haven't seen before. We see a community building, people from across the country connecting with us, being able to play together, or connecting with friends and being able to still keep in touch with them by playing a video game, even if you're not face to face with them. It's something that's really hasn't been happening before, but we see it with the technology advancing. We see that we can have that community now, and then also using it for good. It's ultimately a hobby. It's something that a lot of us love. Some people do pursue it professionally, but a lot of us don't, and it's just a wonderful hobby that we can really take hold of. It's very fun. It's very enjoying to play and be able to be frustrated when you don't win, be able to have competitions between your friends. It's something that's actually really, really good. But understanding where there's that line and also when it can kind of go negatively is very, very crucial when you're taking part in gaming. So, gaming has a lot of benefits and negative effects, so finding that balance is key to getting the best out of gaming. Obviously, we want to be able to educate you guys and you guys learning that if you do want to learn how to game, if you do want to start playing video games, or maybe if you're playing video games now, know how you can build those healthy habits in that. So that's all we have for you guys today. We thank you so, so much for staying tuned and learning a little bit more about the world of gaming, the way it's changing. Is there any more questions before we end this session? Any just random questions about our experiences or just anything about the pros and cons?
I do have one question.
Yes, go ahead.
As a gamer, do you think it's hard realistically for yourself to put on those limitations so you can find that balance, like as being a productive student and like having those set boundaries?
I think it honestly really depends on the season of life you're in. There are some times
Yeah.
that I go months without playing a certain video game because I can see how addicting it can get. And obviously, we're all students. We understand that being a student takes up a lot of time, and knowing that gaming is going to take up a lot of time, it's important to know where to set that boundary. It does get hard because certain games are really, really cool. Some games we've been waiting to come out, but also knowing what kind of season of life you're in, I think is really important. Knowing how much you can take without it negatively affecting you personally.
Yeah, for sure. I think setting those boundaries is very important, especially when, let's say you have a lot of homework or anything. It might be more tempting to just escape and run to games and to hide from it. But I would say it does, as Bertha said, depend on the season of life and what's going on. It depends on your prioritization and what to do. And some good tips I've learned overall is to finish all my work first and treat myself with a game if I finish everything. It not only encourages me to work harder and better and faster, I'm more efficient, but also it gives me that time to rest. And so to find that balance in between.
Thank you so much, Jasmine, for your
Yeah.
question.
And then
We
we have
go
another
ahead.
question. What's your favorite video game? So for me, I think personally, I grew up playing a game called Kingdom Hearts, and I really love this game because it's all about it has Disney characters in it, but it's a crossover between Disney and one of my favorite franchises called Final Fantasy. And it's this weird mesh that you wouldn't think would work, but it does. It's an action game. And I've been playing it since I was a kid. I love the stories it tells, the lessons it tells too. It's one of those cheesy friendship games, but I'm a sucker for those. And honestly, through that game, I've bonded with a lot of people who I wouldn't have otherwise bonded with, and it's something I've introduced to my family, and we all play, and just it's overall, it's a great game. I love it.
Yeah, and I kind of grew up playing Nintendo, so a lot of the more nostalgic games like Mario and Animal Crossing, all those things. Right now, I'm in the middle of a game which I haven't played in a long time because it can get really addicting and very frustrating. I've been playing Alien Isolation, which is a video game to come out from the really old Alien movies, which is really, really cool. It's a little more on the horror side, but it's a really, really good game. It is a very long game, and that's exactly why I'm trying to stay away from it until the summer. But that's one of the games that it changes all the time. But that's one of the games that's like the best for me right now. Thank you so much for your question.
Thank you.
Is there any more questions before we hop off? Cool. Well, we want to thank you so much for staying tuned and learning a little bit more about gaming. And we hope to see you in the next webinar.
Thank you.